Welcome back to another episode of The Road Chose Me, and today an enormous video for you. I'm going to do a super detailed, in-depth review of the pop-up camper roof that I have on my Jeep Wrangler. So I'll go over all of the features, I'll show you how to set it up, I'll show you how to put it down, we'll talk about what available upgrades there are, I'll talk about modifications and improvements I've made to mine, we'll go over the price, we'll compare it to other options. All of this and a whole lot more is coming up in today's episode. So we've got tons to cover. Let's dive into it right now. Here it is, a review of the Ursa Minor pop-up roof for a Jeep Wrangler called the J30. So let's go over some basics before we get into the details. And what I really want to start with is an overall high-level view of this thing. So what you're looking at here, this is a complete replacement for the four-door Jeep Wrangler roof. So whether you have a soft top, whether you have a hard top, or you have that new power top thing, that can be completely taken off and replaced with what you're looking at. So this black piece here is new. Obviously the canvas is new, and then the cap on the top, mine is white, that's new as well. So your original roof comes off, and with your completely stock Jeep Wrangler, this roof gets bolted on in about half an hour. It uses all of the factory mounting points, so this isn't a permanent modification. You could take it off again really easily if you wanted to. And a couple of the specs of this thing, it weighs about 160 pounds more than the regular Jeep hardtop, so it's not too much weight. And when it's closed, it adds about 10 inches in height from the original roof. So you definitely are increasing your wind resistance, your frontal area, but not a dramatic amount. So that's high level stuff about this roof, but I'm getting ahead of myself and I need to back up a little bit. So with a little bit of magic, all right, so backing up a little bit, let's start with the roof closed so I can run you through how to open this thing. And now you get a really good idea of what it looks like when it's closed. You can see here, this is the amount of height that it adds over the stock hardtop, which is somewhere around 10 inches. Not that big of a deal. And you can see it sort of looks stock. If I had have color coded the roof, which we'll talk about a little bit later, then lots of people wouldn't even realize that this Jeep is camperized. And I want to make it clear too, this thing is sitting in my driveway. You're going to see it's got tons of leaves on it. A few days ago it was covered in snow. This isn't a marketing video. This thing is not brand new. I've been using this now for 4.5 years. I've slept in it maybe close to 2,000 nights. That's right, more than 3-4 years worth of sleeping up here. So it's been used heavily. It's not clean, it's not brand new. But I hope you guys will appreciate that's the kind of review I'm giving you. How does this thing really work in the wild? And I haven't prepared anything today. This is exactly as I've been driving my Jeep forever. Nothing is organized, nothing is ready to kind of show you a clean version of how I would use it. This is how I would use it. So we can just say, I just drove the Jeep here, I just pulled the handbrake, and this is what it's gonna take to set up my camper. So in the back here, there is actually a latch on the inside of the roof. So even if you open the two latches at the front, you can't open the roof because it's latched here at the back internally. The only way to open it is by pulling this small ripcord, and it's just here around the corner. You're gonna hear it clunk. So that has released two latches here at the back, one on each side. After I've released the back, I walk around to the front, past the tree that I just walked into, and I open these two latches that are on the two front corners. You can see how easy and quick this is. It's just an up, although this one now, the weight's on it, it's gonna take 2 hands. Twist the latch, and now it's fully open front and back. To open it, I've never tried to do this one-handed, so I don't know what's gonna happen. I climb up, I stand on my rear bumper to do this. You can actually push it up from inside as well, which I might show you later. And now basically, I'm just gonna grab the roof on the two corners and lift. And I'll have to use my other hand, excuse the bad camera angle, but basically now I'm just pushing on the roof. It's got gas struts up there on the hinges that are helping me, and that's it, the roof is up. So that's how easy it is to make camp. And already upstairs, I've got all my bedding. I'll show you the bed first, and then we'll walk through and we'll have a look at the interior. The way that I've been getting into the bed lately is that I climb up here from the outside. I climb up the tire, and then you can access the interior from zips here. There's the one that runs along the bottom, and then there's one that goes up, which I'll have to reach up to get. Again, I've never tried to do this one-handed, so I don't know how this is gonna go, holding the camera for you guys. But basically, I step on the rear tire, and I've got a really good handhold. There's a plastic lip here on the inside. By holding onto that, I can pull myself up, and now I can access this second zip here. And this zip runs right around and gives me access to the enormous bedding area up here. And so from here, it's just a matter of kind of scrambling up. I try not to stand on the guard flare as much as I can because it's not strong enough. We'll go over some options for that a bit later on. So if I hoist myself up, that's it. I'm now sitting upstairs in the bed area. And before I go too much further, I'll show you some features right away. There's a couple of reading lights up here, and I need them on to give enough light to film for you guys. So we'll get that out of the way, and I'll turn. You can see these reading lights here, they're on the roof. And these things are great. They're on snaky little arms, you know, they stay wherever you put them. And for reading at night, using your laptop, whatever you're doing, these things are brilliant. As well as that, there's a light here right in the middle, which is also really nice to have. So you can see here I am actually upstairs. I like to say my Jeep has an upstairs and a downstairs. So I'm upstairs in my Jeep right now. I was just reading the specs. They say the roof here at the back has 44 inches of height. So I'm 6'2" and I can sit up without hitting my head. And down at the feet end there, they say it has 12 inches of height. I have slept with my head at that end a few times because I wasn't able to get the Jeep how I wanted it. And it works fine enough. Sometimes when you roll over in the middle of the night, you feel a tiny bit claustrophobic. Obviously sleeping with your head at this end is better. So here it is, the bed. Officially speaking, it is 4 feet wide. So it's a little bit smaller than a double bed, but it is 7 feet long. So it's actually longer than a queen size bed. So for one person, this thing is palatial. For 2 people, it's plenty long enough. Even when my friend Eric slept up here, he's 6'6", no problem at all lengthwise. But as you can imagine, the width becomes a problem, especially with 2 guys with bigger shoulders. It's kind of helpful to be friends rather than someone you don't know very well. And you can also see a huge thing that I love about this is all of my sleeping gear is up here already. So I've got a big winter sleeping bag. This thing's rated for -15 or something, I think. I've got kind of a thinner summer sleeping bag, and I have 2 full-size pillows up here, and they stay up here all the time. So that's a great advantage, is the bedding's already up here. I can also leave books up here. I've accidentally left my laptop up here a few times. So you get a lot of space and you get a really comfortable, warm, dry bed. A few other things you can do up here are, you can see where I climbed in, I've currently just left the canvas wide open. So there's no bug screen here or anything. This is just open to the elements. But on the 2 back corners, it does also have the option to just have full bug screen. So I'm just going to move the canvas portion out of the way right now. And you can see now that whole rear corner of the Jeep is nothing but bug screen. And I can do that on both back corners. And in fact, that's how I slept for the very vast majority of nights in Africa. Because it was so hot and so humid, I really wanted the cool breeze. And so sleeping with it open to the elements like that is amazing. The stargazing is something you'll never forget. So it's a great feature to get all of this airflow. So not only there at the back can you do that, down the front here has the same feature. So you can see now that I'm lying head down this end, I don't have a ton of room. Like I said, it gets a little claustrophobic, but I can open this the same way. It's just purely bug screen again. And for Africa, I had this open almost the entire 3 years to try and get that airflow. The only time I close it up is when it's thumping rain. It's nice to have that thing about halfway closed, and then the rain won't come in. And we'll talk more about rain later. So in terms of more features of the bed area, when you buy this thing, it comes with these mattress sections. So this is 4-inch high density foam. Mine have obviously been used a lot. I'd say they're a little less than 4 inches now. And they're covered actually in the same fabric that the walls are made out of. And this stuff is really durable, really high quality. Again, this is nearly 2,000 nights, like 4 years of sleeping on this mattress. And you can see it's fine. Now that I think about it, I've probably only washed those covers once or twice because washing machines were a rare thing in Africa. So you can see though, they still look really good and new. And you get these handles here on the side as well. You can actually close the roof with these from the inside, which is a really nice, nifty feature to have. I did it once. I was in Gabon and a herd of wild bees, what do you call it, a swarm, decided to make a nest on the roof. And so when I woke up in the morning, I was surrounded by bees. And so it was really nice. I didn't have to get out. I climbed downstairs from up here, I closed the roof and I drove away. And then like a few miles away, I opened the roof again and then I made breakfast and everything. But if it's pouring rain, you can close the roof from inside, which I think is a really nice feature. What I use mine for too is I have a carabiner on this handle and I've just put a little baggie here that I keep stuff in. I've actually got an eye mask and some earplugs, both really have when you're wild camping around Africa or through Latin America. So it's handy to be able to leave stuff like that up here. One other feature up here is this bar that you see on the roof here, this metal bar. And this is actually a safety bar to make sure that the roof can't close when it's snowing really heavily or it's raining. And the idea is you bring it down like this, and I haven't done this for so long I forget how it goes, and then you twist the bar like that, and now the roof cannot physically close. This is stopping it from falling down. And you can even fold this little guy out of the way so you don't hit your head on it. But as I said, I haven't done this in so long I forget how to do it. In really high wind, I did use it, but the top does really well in high wind. They recommend that you park it facing the wind, you know, so the nose kind of is deflecting the wind and it's a little more aerodynamic. And it works really well. I never felt worried the roof was going to close. And certainly I've slept in this thing with quite a bit of snow and it never felt like the roof was going to fall closed on me. But I guess that's what the safety bar's for. That's what safety's all about. So that's there as well. And that's kind of all of the features now of upstairs in the bed area. You can see this is really comfortable, you know, look at me spreading out in here. There were evenings I'd bring my laptop up here, I'd bring my cameras, you know, I can edit photos. I wrote my book while I was sitting up here like this in the evenings. So plenty of good hangout space and a really big comfortable bed. Huge features to have, you know, when you're looking at this thing. So in terms of getting up here to go to sleep, you can climb in from the outside like I did, or you can climb up from inside the Jeep. And this is where my J30 is very different than normal ones. And so what I'm about to show you is very unique to my setup, and I'll do my best to explain what the standard setup is. And so normally what this roof has is it has 2 access hatches. They're usually right here, which is directly behind the roll bar that's behind the driver's seat, but then before the roll bar that's kind of about halfway through the rear storage area. And so there's an access hatch here. You would normally move a mattress section out of the way, then move a little fiberglass hatch. And when you climb down, you're basically standing right on the back seat of the Jeep. And when you stand on that, they say you have 6 feet 6 of height. So you can stand up. And there's a hatch on this side and there's a hatch on that side. And that's how this roof normally works. So if you want to, you can go in from below and come up here, put the hatches and mattresses in place, and then you're up here asleep and you didn't have to come in from the outside like I showed you. Or you can come in from the outside, you know, it's your choice. But when I was designing my Jeep, I'm a special butterfly, so I wanted mine to be a bit different. And so what I've done is I've made this rear hatch much, much, much bigger so that I have my interior living space. And John at Ursa Minor, he did help me do this. He modified the roof for me, but he has said he doesn't want to do it again. It's too much work for him. And the other thing is you have to modify the roll bar on the Jeep to be able to accommodate what I've done. And obviously there's some legality issues there that Ursa Minor do not want to go near. And obviously lots of people aren't willing to cut up and weld their Jeep like that. So if you did want to do this modification, you definitely could modify the top. It's going to take a fair bit of fiberglassing work, and you're going to have to modify your roll bar. So it's not to be taken lightly. You know, it's not something you're just going to do on a weekend as an easy little modification. This is significant. I did it to mine because of the Africa trip. But, you know, if I was staying in North America and I just wanted to buy one of these pop-up roofs, leave it stock, and it would still be an amazing modification. But all of that out of the way, I'll show you now how I can climb from upstairs to downstairs in my particular J30, which is different than the stock one, but it's not mind-bendingly different. It's not an entirely different universe. So what I've got basically is the whole rear section of my J30. It isn't actually a fiberglass floor anymore because all of that fiberglass was cut away. So I've just moved all the mattress sections out of the way, and you can see right now the whole bed area is just these wooden slats that normally I would be lying on, but now you can see already we can just see down into the Jeep. So what John did for me here at Ursa Minor is you can see where there's a lip here in the fiberglass to create this big open space. Normally this would just be continuous fiberglass. So this is the modification here where the fiberglass has this big cutout in it. And so what I'm going to do now is move these wooden slats out of the way. And there's a few different ways I could have done this. I don't know that this is the best. Originally I planned kind of a solid piece of wood that maybe slid forward or slid to the side or something. In the end we kind of came up with this idea, and these wooden slats, it feels a little bit like being on a sailboat actually. They kind of fold up a little bit like a concertina once I get them out of the way. And there's a couple of latches here that hold them in place. Here, I can do this one with my fingers. You can see this little latch that I slide to the side here. I just slide this little latch, and everything here is getting a little bit stiff. These planks, I guess, have swelled a little bit in the humidity, and so all of this needs a little bit of maintenance that I just haven't done. I should probably sand like a tiny fraction off the end of all of these so they kind of slide better. You're going to see here as I try to do this, they're jamming lately. So this whole sliding process is not as smooth as it used to be. But already you can start to get the idea. I now have a gap straight down into my Jeep. And again, I've never tried to do this one-handed. I don't think I'm going to be able to. So give me a second here, bear with me. But basically if I fold them up, they alternate. One goes up, one goes down. You can see, there we go. Now they're cooperating. Now the planks slide across like that. And I now have a full open hatch to be able to climb down to the bottom of my Jeep. And so from here, there were days where I left it like this, and I now have a half bed, so I can lie up here and read a book or whatever, but then I can easily climb down and, you know, go down into the fridge and get things from downstairs. Or if I want to, I can move this side that I'm sitting on, I can move it out of the way in exactly the same way. So again, it's got those wooden slats, they push up, they fold away, and I put all the mattress sections up the front here. I just kind of shove everything up there, and you can see that's what gives me my big interior living space. But if you had a standard J30, which you will if you get one, you'd be standing about here. I'd be in one of the access hatches right now, and the other one would be here. And you can imagine all of this here in front of me now, this is just solid fiberglass. So you can't stand and walk in this region, because the main reason is because the Jeep normally has a roll bar running right through here, through the middle. So for anyone that's got a Jeep, you remember if this is the back seat, just behind the back seat, there's a big crossbar here. So that's what I've cut out, and I did that to get all of this living space. But you can see now where I get the upstairs bed, and I also get downstairs living area. And you would get that with a stock J30 as well. And obviously I've modified my interior here a lot with all my cabinets and my fridge and all of that. You don't have to do any of that, obviously. What you choose to do downstairs in your Jeep is entirely up to you and to suit your needs. This is just what I did to mine. And while we're in here, we can see a couple more features of the J30. It comes, the entire roof down here is lined with carpet. And so this is actually glued onto the fiberglass. And this is really nice because it provides insulation and it's sound deadening as well. So a lot of people ask about road noise driving with the roof on, and I would say it's actually quieter than the stock hardtop was, partly because it has this carpet everywhere, and also because above your head is the 4 inches of foam mattress plus all of my sleeping stuff, you know, before the fiberglass roof. So actually it's way more sound insulated than a stock hardtop. And mine never whistles, it never gets any wind noise. I think that's a consideration if you run a roof rack, but just with my solar panels, no roof rack, no problem at all. And just for completeness, I'll show you at the back here too. This is all totally stock Jeep stuff, and this comes with the hardtop. So the glass, the lift struts, all of that, this is just, you know, Ursa Minor buy this from Jeep, and so it all just works as you expect. When you buy the Ursa Minor, it does not actually come with a rear wiper mechanism. That's an optional extra. And the main reason that I didn't add one is because I have the external gas tank. You can see my middle rear view mirror is essentially useless. So having a rear wiper on there, it's really not necessary. It's not something that I've ever missed. So in that regard, you're gonna lose your rear wiper unless you pay the optional extra. While we've got this thing up, let's walk around and talk about how durable it is. First of all, the lower section here, I didn't get it color coded to the Jeep. That's an optional upgrade. And so it comes black like this from Ursa Minor, and it comes with this textured surface. I guess lots of us would call it Line-X or Raptor Liner or whatever particular brand it is, I don't know. But this is after probably close to 100,000 miles through 30, 50, 58 countries or something, and lots of pinstriping, lots of aggressive off-roading, and you can see this thing is absolutely perfect. It does not have a mark on it. In fact, it's much more durable than the stock Jeep. There are way more pinstripes on the doors. So in terms of how durable this thing is, I am extremely impressed. Probably the only real damage that I've done to it is up there. You can see on the white cap, I've actually got some white duct tape on it. That's from when I rolled this thing in Uganda. So I really did roll this on its side. It slapped down onto some rocks, and that's where it tore off the guard flares. You know, it scratched up all of this. The snorkel crushed in the A-pillar here. So a lot of weight came down on the side of the Jeep, all of this damage in here. But the J30 held up perfectly fine. So is this thing tough? Yes, it really is tough. The fabric, you can see, again, this is after, 2,000 days of use and, 3 years in the African sun and the dust. You can get a really good look there, the inside compared to the outside. Look at the color difference. That on the outside is just from the African dust and the African sun. But overall, this thing is impressively durable. I will comment, you can see I've got some duct tape here on these spots. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is when I first bought this thing, I didn't pay enough attention to tucking in the canvas when I was closing the roof. Especially when you leave your sleeping stuff upstairs, you have to make sure the canvas is tucked in so it doesn't get caught in the hinges here. And you can see here where it does actually rub on the hinge when I'm not careful. That's where the duct tape is all abraded. And so because I did that for the first few months, it did actually start to wear little marks in the canvas. So I threw that duct tape on there, and that's been there for the last 4 years. So that's one tiny little, let's call it defect, but all in all, I'd say that's extraordinarily minor. Other than that, I've never replaced the hinges, I've never replaced any of the latches. You can see here where the canvas is certainly getting used, and it's dirty. I should probably give it a wash one of these days. I did wash it once or twice in Africa, but overall, how tough is this thing? This thing is really tough. Let's have a look now how we close the roof. We're done cooking breakfast and it's kind of left how I would normally climb out in the morning. So the bed is put together right now. All of those planks are back in place. And one of the key things, if you're gonna leave your bedding up here, is you have to make everything as flat as you possibly can. So I've got the safety bar out of the way, and I've also left these rear sections open just a little bit. Not wide open, not completely closed. That's important to let all of the air out that gets trapped in here. So it's kind of a bit of an art. You put the pillows about so. I leave a gap in the middle so the safety bar will fall in the gap. And it's a bit of trial and error sometimes to get your bedding flat enough. And I would say 2 sleeping bags and 2 pillows is about the maximum that you can leave up here and still be able to get the roof closed. Any more than that, and I think it's just too much thickness and the latches aren't going to close. So I've got everything up there nice and flat right now. And to close it, you start at the back of the Jeep. Again, climb up on the rear bumper, and you can pull down on this strap that Ursa Minor have provided. And I'm just pulling with one hand. You can see it's coming down. And what I do is I stop about there. And I'll show you why. Let's walk around. You can see the canvas is trying to billow out because of the air that's trapped inside, especially on the sides, it's billowing out. So we need to deal with that. We have to fix that. And you kind of end up tucking it in. My family always called these hospital corners for some reason, like when you're tucking in a bed where you pull the corner out and tuck in. And again, this is kind of hard to do one-handed. Normally I would use 2 hands for this. And now you can see I've got the 2 corners really nice and tucked in like that, so it's going to fold nice and flat. And before I put the roof the rest of the way down, I personally like to walk around and really make sure. So I'm going to reach up and push on the canvas, and really I'm pushing it as far in as I can to get it away, especially from the hinges here. I don't want it to get snagged in the hinge. And I'll do that on the other side as well. And you can see already here, it's actually snagging on the hinge a little bit from the air that got caught. So really want to push that in and away from the hinge. That's a lesson that I'm learning, or learned the hard way. But now that I've tucked all the canvas in, I'm really happy with how flat it's all going to be. I can just pull it the rest of the way down, and it kind of falls the last little bit. Give it a little bit of a jiggle, and there you heard it kind of clunk the rest of the way. And what happens now is there's those 2 latches at the back here that I mentioned. And if I pull down on the rear corner here, I've got my hand up top. Oh yeah, you heard it click and then it unclicked. So it didn't actually latch, it got close. I'll pull a bit harder. And now, yeah, I can't lift it again. So that corner has latched. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Just do this with one hand. There, and I heard it go click. And now I can't lift this rear corner. So the 2 rear corners are latched. Again, walk a lap around the Jeep, play with these front latches a little bit. And these sometimes can require a little bit of tugging because now the back is closed. I have to kind of pull down pretty hard. Normally I would use 2 hands. That latch is closed. And that's it. 4 corners are now latched, so the roof is totally closed. All bedding is upstairs. We're ready. We can jump in the driver's seat and go have adventures for the day. So you can see, really quick to set up and barely any longer to pack up. That's one of the things I love about this roof. Let's talk about some of the optional features of the J30. And the first one is your choice of rear windows. So if you don't pay any extra money, the rear is just blanked in with fiberglass. You can't see out at all. And I don't love that if I'm reversing or when I'm in traffic. I really like to be able to see out. So the first upgrade you could have for $250 per side is just a plain piece of glass that doesn't open. And I think they'd be great. I opted to go for $350 per side, and you get these opening windows. So you can see there's bug net here when the window is actually open. Mine's insanely dirty from Africa. And I thought these would be really helpful, but actually I really didn't use them all that much. There was only a handful of evenings where I opened them up, and I never really felt comfortable leaving them open at night because I was in Africa. So if I had my time over again and I was ordering another J30, I would just get the blank glass rear. I wouldn't get the opening rear windows. The other optional thing we can talk about back here is getting the top color coded. So you have quite a few options here on how you get it painted. You can choose to have this lower portion painted to match your Jeep if you want. You can have the upper cap painted either to match the Jeep, or you can just get it in this same textured black so it kind of blends in. And Ursa Minor do a really cool option there. They call it perimeter paint, where if you want it black or if you've got a dark color Jeep, they'll do this edge and a little bit of the top in your dark color, but the middle of the roof will still be white. And I'll show you a photo here so you can see what I mean. This is a really cool option though, so the roof doesn't get insanely hot in the sun. And I didn't get mine color coded because it's quite an expensive upgrade, and I've always liked the look of the black hardtop on the Jeep. Should I have gotten the cap color coded or maybe black? Would it look a little bit better? Maybe it would, I don't know. I'm really happy with mine how it is. Another thing you can option if you want is some kind of awning. And you can buy any one you want, just have it sent to Ursa Minor and they'll mount it for you. You can see the J30 has these mounting points down the side, and these are reinforced mounting points embedded in the fiberglass, which is great. And you can choose, you could get a side awning with a 180 batwing. I've got a little rear awning on the back here, which has been really good, but I wish it was a little bit bigger. So these are options that you can choose. My advice would be though, if you are going to get one, have Ursa Minor install it for you, because they need to drill holes in the fiberglass and put bolts through. And if they do that in the factory, it gets covered up with the interior carpeting and it all just looks really perfect. It's how it's meant to be. If you do it yourself afterwards, maybe it's going to be a little different than that. So if you're thinking about an awning, have a chat to John at Ursa Minor. Also, if they do mount a side one, they can move the front latches for you. Usually they put them on the very front so they're not in the way of the awning. But that's an option, you can add that, no problem. Just like the awning, when you're getting your J30 built, you can option solar panels on the roof if you want. And again, talk to John at Ursa Minor. You can buy any brand you want and just have them sent to him and he'll mount them. And again, I really recommend getting them to do this, because while they're molding the fiberglass roof, they actually embed the mounting bolts straight into the fiberglass that are like permanently in there. So it's impossible for it to leak, and you don't see any bolts on the inside. It's all just perfectly integrated. They also install this little round thing that covers up where the wires go down, and then the wires run through this slot in the fabric. This black piece is actually a channel for the wires, and they all get integrated and you basically don't see the solar wires at all, which I think is really great. And I love my solar panels, so if I get another J30, I would definitely be getting solar panels mounted. Again, talk to John at Ursa Minor about that. It's a similar story with adding a roof rack. You totally could put one on after the fact if you wanted to, but if you get Ursa Minor to do it for you at the factory, again, all of those bolts and everything, they're sealed into the fiberglass, they're inside the roof liner, and it'll never leak and it'll be perfect factory finish. So if I was getting a roof rack, that's what I would do. And you can talk to Ursa about what size rack and how much weight you can put up there. You can definitely transport things like kayaks and canoes, but if it's heavy, you have to take it off every time before you open the roof. So that's something to think about. And on that as well, depending on what roof options you get, whether it's solar panel or roof rack or a bit of both, Ursa Minor will change the rating of the gas struts that are in the roof, so that'll help you lift up the roof for the right amount of weight. So again, it really makes sense to get them to do it from the factory, because then it's all dialed in and it all just works perfectly. Another optional extra on the J30 is actually up here at the front. So I'll climb in the driver's seat, and on the roof here, above both the driver and the passenger, Ursa Minor call this thing their map pocket. And so this thing has a whole bunch of zips, and so I can store maps and paperwork in here above me, and so that's on both sides. And also conveniently, it has carpet here in the middle, which is really handy for sticking your patch collection if you're into that kind of thing. But this map pocket has actually been really, really handy. I had a ton of stuff up there when I was in Africa, even things that I just wanted to have handy but didn't need to be locked away in my lock boxes. So for the price, for the map pocket, definitely 100% I would option that. All right, so this thing is obviously great, but what about the price? And yeah, it's expensive. This one for my Wrangler is $7,300, and the new model for the JL Wrangler is $7,500. So let's say you add a couple of options, maybe the clear rear windows, maybe the map pocket on the front, and let's call it $8,000, nice round numbers. So that obviously is a huge chunk of money, but I think it's good to put it into perspective. So the first thing you have to remember is that I sold my stock hardtop for $1,500. I put it on Craigslist in San Diego and it got snapped up in a day. So when I drove down to San Diego, a guy showed up at Ursa Minor. We took my hardtop off, put it on his Jeep. He gave me $1,500 and then I just gave that to Ursa Minor. So essentially I didn't pay $8,000 for this thing, I paid $6,500. So that immediately is a nice price reduction. $6,500 still sounds like a lot of money, I know, but we have to again put it into perspective and remember, if you wanted a rooftop tent, you have to buy a high quality roof rack, which is $1,500 to $2,000, and a good quality rooftop tent is going to be $2,000. So although $6,500 sounds like a lot of money, you are comparing it to around $4,000. So it's only $2,500 more than a good rooftop tent and roof rack. So for the convenience that it adds and for the high quality product that it is, you're going to have to decide if that's worth it or not. And one thing that I like to keep in mind too, these are relatively rare still. I think mine is about number 135 and maybe there's been about 500 of them made now. So what that means is if you did want to sell it down the road, you can sell it for a really good price. I see them sell used for about $6,000. So even if you bought one, you have $6,500 into it, you use it for a few years and then you sell it for $6,000. I mean, that's pretty good. I don't think you're going to be able to sell your used roof rack or your used rooftop tent for anywhere near what you paid for it. So sticker shock is a thing. It is definitely expensive, but when you sit down and think about it, if you're going to be using it a lot and if you really want to turn your Jeep into a house on wheels, I think it's well worth the money. So Ursa Minor don't only make this for the 4-door Jeep Wrangler. They originally started making this thing for a Honda Element, the minivan. You can also get it for a Ford Transit Connect. They have announced that they're going to be making it for the Gladiator and for the new Ford Bronco because that thing has a removable roof just like my Wrangler. So there are a lot more options coming. And a little birdie told me they're also going to make it for some other things as well. On that though, I love the guys at Ursa Minor. They make a really quality product, but they're not interested in rushing products to market. So they want to do it well, they want to do it right. So if the Bronco comes out, let's say mid 2021, I wouldn't expect to see a roof for it until mid 2022 or maybe even 2023. But John at Ursa Minor, I hope you can prove me wrong and surprise me on that. Another small modification I made that's actually kind of useful for everyone who has any kind of rooftop tent is it's really nice to know when your vehicle's level because you want it to be level for sleeping. So what I normally do when I'm parking, I find a spot where the Jeep will just roll forward on its own. So I put my foot on the clutch and just make sure it'll go forward. That basically lets me know that it's nose downhill, which means my feet are going to be downhill, which is what I really want. Just a little bit of feet below head is ideal. And then to get left to right level, it's actually harder than you think sitting in the driver's seat. And it's not until you get out and look at it, you realize it's not level. So what I added here is just the world's simplest little spirit bubble. And I just zip tied it here onto the footman loop of the Jeep. And so while I'm sitting here in the driver's seat, I can just see if the bubble, is in the middle or not. And so when I'm parking, when I'm getting ready to camp for the night, I just kind of shimmy the Jeep around, just move it like, the front a foot to the left or a foot to the right until I get that bubble dead set in the middle. Then I know I'm perfect and I'm going to sleep really well. And if you can't get it perfectly level, with one person upstairs, you can sleep on a diagonal and still get a really good night's sleep. But if you've got two people upstairs, one person is going to wind up rolling on top of the other person. So you really want to get it level. That's why I recommend such a simple little modification like that. I made another really simple and cheap modification to my J30 and it changed everything. And that is I replaced all of the pulls on the zips. Normally they have like a little metal pull on them like all zips do. And because this thing's up in the air like this, when you camp in the wind, the whole canvas, it just kind of moves like this. It's not a big deal, but when it moves like that, those zips rattle in the wind. And because there are a lot of zips on this thing, because of the way the bug screen works, because you can climb in from outside, you can open the bug screen at the front, every single one of those is a zip. I think there's about 14 of them actually. So what I did is on Amazon, you can buy these cheap little pull things. I guess it's a piece of string with kind of a piece of plastic. And so I cut off the metal pull, and there's one on the inside and one on the outside. That's why there's 14 of these things in total. And I replaced every single one of those with those little pulls. And it made a huge difference to how well I sleep, because you don't get that rattling noise of the zips. Super simple and cheap, but well worth doing. I get asked a ton of questions about this roof, so rapid fire, I'll try to answer as many of them as I can right now. First question, how does it handle snow? And really well, actually. I've camped in this thing probably 20 times in heavy snow, and the canvas is thick enough that it actually gets significantly warm upstairs. Especially with 2 people, you really notice it stays warm up there. When it comes time to pack it away, I usually try hard to brush the snow off these flat surfaces, just so that it doesn't end up trapped in there and then melting and then probably making everything wet. But all in all, I'd say this works really well for the snow because the fiberglass roof keeps the majority of it off of the canvas. Same story for heavy rain. I camped in this hundreds of times in the heaviest rain I've ever seen in the Congo, in Gabon, you know, all through Africa. And the majority of the rain just pours off the hardtop. It doesn't actually hit the fabric at all. On that though, this fabric is made by Sunbrella, is the brand name, and they actually sell a product. It's called 303. I'll put a picture up, and you spray this stuff on to sort of re-waterproof it or to make it water resistant again. And so I've done that, I think, twice now while I was around Africa. So I spent a day, I would scrub down the canvas with warm soapy water, let it dry out, and then spray on this waterproofing stuff. And it works fantastically. So after maybe a year and a half in the African sun every day, the dust, the wind, it would start to be a little less water repellent. So after 3 or 4 days of heavy rain, I could see that it was sort of soaking in a little bit to the canvas, especially at the back. And so after applying this waterproofing stuff, it was amazing. Water just runs straight off it as if it's made out of plastic. So that 303 spray, you can expect to put some of that on there every few years and your canvas will stay really waterproof. I said earlier, mine is actually quieter when driving than the original hardtop. One thing that it did have though, is these front latches sometimes rattle a little bit. So all I did is I got a little bit of fuel line, just like a rubber hose, and I cut it and I attached it here on the round part of the hinge. And that basically just stops the rattling noise when you're driving. It was only a really minor thing, but I could hear it, and so that made a big difference to how happy I am with the roof. People ask if you can take this roof off, and yeah, you can. It's just like your stock hardtop. It uses the same bolts. The only difference is that it is significantly heavier. So where you would get your stock hardtop off with maybe 2 people, 3 for sure, you're gonna need 4 for this. 6 is probably even better. And it's quite heavy, so you'll need to find a good place to set it down and expect not to move it again. But if you did want to run this for part of the year and then a soft top or no top for the other part of the year, absolutely you can do that, no problem. For the electrical, there's just one connector that you have to unplug, but it's really simple. Another thing people ask about is, what about some kind of ladder system to be able to climb up from the outside? And yep, you totally can. Lots of people have done it. They mount really well to these 2 spots here that Ursa have put in the fiberglass. I didn't do it because in Africa, a ladder on the outside of your vehicle is just going to invite people to climb up, and it'll kind of give away the idea that you can actually get into the sleeping area from outside. When there's no ladder, that kind of isn't as obvious, so I didn't get one. What I've thought about adding is American Expedition Vehicles. They sell corner guards for the Jeep, steel guards, and then it's an optional extra. You can get a rail that runs along about here. And I think that rail would be really helpful just to use as a step as you're going up in the way I do. So maybe that's something I'll add in the future. People also ask about buying one of these things in other countries, and yes, you totally can. Ursa Minor can put it in a crate for you and they can ship it anywhere in the world. So there are some of these running around in Europe, in South Africa, in Australia. So this has been an enormous video. I hope this has been helpful running through all of the different features, and I hope it gives you an idea about how you can camperize not just a Jeep Wrangler, but kind of any four-wheel drive or any vehicle that you're looking at going on long-term expedition in. You know, this kind of interior living space, every long-term overlander I've ever talked to, that's their #1 criteria in a vehicle. So I hope this gets your gears turning. Let me know if you've got any more questions about the J30. There's a ton of stuff, and I know it's a big purchase, so a lot of people kind of hesitate about buying one. If there's anything else you'd like to know, leave a comment below. I promise I'll reply and I'll answer as best as I can. And if this has been helpful, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. I'm putting out more content all the time to help you guys get out and have your own grand adventures all around the world. So until next time, maybe I'll bump into you on the road, but until then, it's time for me to go to bed now that I'm up here. So good night, everyone.